Apparently, the tech industry is gutting the diversity and inclusion departments. The apparatchiks are going away. And there's a lot of salt on Twitter, as we can see. Lemao at the comments because it's all the white men who are happy. And that says a lot. Yeah, it says a lot because they're probably fired already. Usually, when a company starts firing the diversity and inclusion departments, it's because they fired everything else. But of course, white men are happy. I mean, let's put it in a different perspective. Let's imagine that we are in Saudi Arabia. And in Saudi Arabia, they would have the police of vice and virtue hired at many corporations to make sure that a certain quota of men is met in every company. So even if you find a talented woman, as long as the quota of men isn't met, you can't hire her. Right? If that police of vice and virtue would be fired, do you not think that woman would be happy? And then it would be you would see like a man over there going, it's like, oh, the fact that women are happy that the police of vice and virtue is being removed says a lot. But of course, in reality, the diversity officers are a drain on every company. They do not produce anything. And on top of that, they have huge salaries. So it costs the company money just to keep them going. They create a very toxic work environment. It's interesting how people get along when you leave them the fuck alone. And this is something that Amazon discovered, that when you have diversity officers, the risk of the people unionizing is far less. Because in a company where you leave Joe and Jose alone, they might realize that, oh, we're in the same pot, we have mutual interests, we need to demand that the company treats us better. But when you have a company that pushes divisive identity politics and says that Jose is Latinx and Joe is oppressing him, and all of a sudden they're not in the same pot, they're actually struggling in the game of oppression and blah blah blah. So this is what Amazon figured out. Now, looking at this article, it's absolutely hilarious with the levels of cope that they're reducing. So first one is that at Twitter, there's only 2 diversity officers remaining. In my opinion, there's 2 too many. I mean, the idea that you cannot hire diverse people without diversity officers is ridiculous. Like, there are other countries that do not have diversity officers, I just want to point out. But if you happen to be a minority of that country, and you have the skills required, they will hire you. How does China manage to have a business, huh? How does Eastern Europe manage to run companies? We have minorities here. They do have jobs, but for some reason, this does not exist, right? Like before diversity officers, which by the way is quite a new invention, right? But I understand that before that, like 2000s and before, minorities in the United States did not have jobs, right? So look at this. The layoffs is sweeping the technology industry. And I want you to see how you have a decline of job openings across the roles. And I assume it's also proportional to the number of people fired. Look at software engineers. Look at data science. Right? Like these people are essential in running a business if you're in tech. But the diversity officers are like 90% and the HR at 13%. So in other words, it's exactly as I expected. They first fire the essential people, and when they can't fire enough of the essential people, then they start going after the diversity and the HR. That says a lot. Like, these are the new aristocracy of modern times. They are the clergy, the priesthood, the apparatchiks of companies. And look at this. Like, this is absolutely hilarious. Apparently, a spokesperson for Amazon said that the company diversity priorities haven't changed, and that they're still going to manage to achieve them. Yeah, imagine the fact that you can still hire minorities without having someone that's paid around $9,000 a month in order to send a couple of emails. I'm cautiously concerned, not that these roles will go to zero, but that there will be a spike in Swiss Army knife type roles, meaning that more diversity professionals will be spread thin as they take on additional job functions. Oh my fucking god, they may have to work for a living. Like, anyone that has been at one of these companies, you probably know just how much time the diversity lady has on her hand. Like, she probably sends 1, maybe 2 emails a day, and that's her job. And she gets paid more than you. She probably has an office with air conditioning. She doesn't have the open office type of thing, right? Like, she's the only one whose computer isn't faced towards the glass window. She manages to have, like, the computer faced away so that no one gets to see what she's typing. And maybe forces you to go to a corporate retreat every now and then. That's her job. And then she goes and drinks wine with the lady from the sales department. And now it's like, oh my god, they might have to crunch. They might have to work. Oh, that's horrible. And by the way, diversity, right? How much diversity is within the diversity officer class? Why does no one ask that? They always say it's like, oh, well, we need diversity at this company. Okay, fine. But how much diversity is within the diversity officer? How much diversity is within the HR? It's overwhelmingly white women, isn't it? But, like, that's fine, I guess. You know, no diversity required there. So, apparently, they plan to cut 363,000 jobs. This is an army of people. Like, an army of diversity officers. And look at this wording. It literally shows what it's all about. Now, just as tech companies had started to make progress, they're scaling back those teams before fully meeting goals, and it's not a good look. This is literally what it's about. It's about the look, isn't it? Right? It's the good look. This is what diversity officers are all about, not to accomplish goals. In fact, there were studies showing that a diversity officer doesn't necessarily increase the diversity at a place. But it's all about the look, right? It's like, hey, we did our job. I mean, we tried. Oh, someone said the N-word at the company. Well, we did everything we could in order to prevent that. Yeah, sure, we fired the guy. But, like, look, we have diversity officers. We have diversity training. I mean, we do all of that. And yet someone said the N-word. Not our fault. Please don't sue us. Didn't that happen to Tesla, by the way, where an employee claimed that someone used the N-word against him? Had no evidence. And the media was on Tesla's ass. So I guess, like, this is about it, you know, having the good look. This is why you hire an army of 363,000 people. Apparently, diversity officers started becoming a thing in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter thing, right? Where you have the George Floyd and apparently an army of chief diversity officers surged. 123% new jobs were created. So it's literally all about the look. It's the bourgeois of the tech industry. You just have to pretend that you have class in order to be accepted into polite society. So, my favorite point is that without diversity, they can miss out on a lot of talent, right? Like, without diversity, companies will lose out on talent. Prove it! Prove it! Like, you're telling me that if a company gives you a well-paid job as an engineer, they're going to say, oh no, because they don't have a diversity officer, I'm not going to work there. How did people work at these companies before 2020? When there were fewer, or even before the year 2000, how did companies even manage to hire people? And here you have, like, my favorite quote from the entire article. Diversity, equity, and inclusion can't be a thing you only do when times are good. That is literally the only time you can have diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let me put it this way, and I'll prove it. Let's say you want to start to open a business. I don't know, a cat cafe. And you have the bare minimum resources to start it. Who is the first person you're going to hire? Are you going to hire another waitress? Are you going to hire an accountant? Or are you going to hire a diversity officer? Take into account you're just starting. You don't have much money. Who do you think you're going to hire? Who's going to improve the effectiveness of your business? Who's going to make the clients more happy? So after you hire staff, right? Let's say you're a leftist and you literally want to look good, right? Eventually you may hire like a diversity person. When you have like a chain of cat cafes all over the country, you hire a diversity person. But now let's say times are tough. You have COVID. Places are shutting down. You have to fire people. Who are you going to fire? Well, you're probably not going to fire the diversity officer, will you? Because that's the one that hired other people. So if you fire her, now the other people are going to go on strike. They're going to protest. They're going to start saying bad things about your business to the press. So you got yourself in a conundrum. Which is why I keep saying that, no, they're actually, like, these positions are not just toxic for the company, but they're a drag. I don't think that there is a single example where these positions bring money to the company. Anyway, right, let me know what you think. And as usual, I will find you in the comment section. Take care.